validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I am your host, Sander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I appreciate you guys tiptoeing into this nice Saturday afternoon. We are halfway. Well, this is the last week of January. I'm already in summertime. I'm speeding through the year, get to a new year. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. I hope y'all like that song that opened the show. It is called Higher Ground. We have another version of Higher Ground that is our outro song, so you can take a look at that at the end of the show. If you guys want more information about the song itself, you can click the link, approve the mic, approve the camera. Oh, sorry. If you want to get information about the Higher Ground on the show, I'm thinking about two things at one time. In the description down below, you can click that link, and that link will take you to the song. There's a link below each song that'll take you to Amazon. If you got Amazon Prime, where you can download the song. If you want to get into the show, that's where you click that link that I was just talking about. Two thoughts at one time. There's links all over the place. But if you click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera, brings you onto the show in real time. We can have an open forum, open-minded, open mic conversation. And you have to be over the age of 18 to do so. So moving forward, if you guys got some comments, make sure that you go ahead and throw those comments into the comment section down below. Also, I wanted to make sure I did tell one of the fans that I was going to put his information in here. So let me make sure that I get Chad D in the reel, because I did tell him that I was going to do it. I've been so busy that, I have been back to back, because, like I told you, this is a nightly podcast. So every night we air the podcast. No matter what happens, we air the podcast. So I have to do research on every single topic that ever comes across the podcast, which also requires me to organize that information, create all the back data, everything like that, all the SEOs, all that stuff. I'm knocking all that stuff out on my own. Then I have to air the show. So there's a lot of times that there's something I'm supposed to do and I don't get to it. And I'm just like, dang. So I feel bad every now and again when I run out of time and then I got to do a whole nother show and I have not fulfilled my obligations from giving special shout outs to some of my fans. So Omni 81, Red Void, Liberty Twitcher, Silly Emma, AJ, Mr. Pibbs, Courtney, Max Opposer, Reese Martinez. Special shout out to all of you guys, and Chad D, who's been coming to the show, Vivian, Valerie, both of them. I want to give a special shout out to all of you guys for showing up to the show on a regular basis and giving us a special shout out. So I appreciate y'all. Today, we're going to be talking about the DEI, the NAACP. And the reason why we're talking about these today is because one of the fans was on the show on Monday claiming that these organizations are racist. And that's not altogether true. They might not be effective for minorities, which is what we're going to dive into today. But they're not racist. One of the fans actually challenged me to prove to them that the NAACP wasn't exclusively made of minorities, that it wasn't exclusively run by minority leaders. And I had to do deep diving information to provide to them the facts that, yes, it is not exclusively run by minorities. It is a very diverse situation where individuals are clearly working towards less oppositional equality. The DEI was supposed to be doing the same thing, but we have to recognize that not everything that we build for good actually does good. We have to understand that there is a method to the madness of Donald Trump, and when he is doing away with the DEI, he has already done away with the DEI. We're going to be talking about that today. And while we're talking about Donald Trump, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk's nifty poses during the post-inauguration speeches. And we're going to be going into how things will progress because of some of the things that he's done. Now, keep in mind, we have our members only show that's going to be tomorrow night. We're going to be doing, it's open to the public, but we're going to be doing some reactions to some of the questions and comments from the fans. You guys are welcome to come to that. And Monday, we're going to try to go through as many of the new executive court orders that Donald Trump has signed since last week, Monday, where he has broken the record as the most executive orders that a president has signed in less than 100 days. Technically, he has signed the most executive orders in 30 days, but we're going to go through as many of those executive orders as possible, and we're going to come to determine exactly how each one of these executive orders can impact our day-to-day lifestyle versus the ones that just have long-term implications where we could potentially see something different, but it might not necessarily impact our day-to-day operations. It might change our mindset, but it's not necessarily going to impact our day-to-day operations. So make sure that you guys like and subscribe if you're new to the podcast. Hit the follow button if you're following us from Twitch or Twitter. TikTok is back for now, technically. But that does not necessarily mean it's going to be a permanent situation until Donald Trump has majority shares. The American version of TikTok, I can't say that TikTok is back for good, but TikTok does have at least a 75-day furlough where those of us that are enjoying TikTok right now can continue to enjoy TikTok for at least another month and a half to 2 months. Well, 2.5 months, really, because 75 days is 2 months and 2 weeks. So join me today before I get started, California's still burning. As soon as the last flame is put out, I will tell you guys that California is no longer burning and be able to give you the wide range of devastation of the California burns. And while we're talking about that, I did go back and double check on those real estate investment trusts. And I can tell you that those REITs that are publicly investable are still at record highs. You have the Orchid Investment Trust that has gone down from $18.79 to $18.1 or $8 and $8.01 per share from $8.79 per share. And there is another REIT that is following them that is $18.48 a share. And that one is putting out about 15% interest on each share. Whereas the Orchid investment is putting out about 18.79 cents per share. So you're looking at about $1.59 for every $8 share from Orchid versus something close to $4 or $5 a share off of the $18 share. Yeah. So the REITs are doing okay so far. So California didn't destroy them that much. However, if you're not following my lead and diving into these high interest, high dividend yielding investment platforms, you're wasting a lot of your time and effort, because I just spent the large quantity of yesterday's show talking about, I spent the whole show yesterday talking to you guys about penny stocks and ways that you could buy at $5 a day. You could buy into investments where you guys could expand your horizons on a quick way, because penny stocks are $5 or less per share. And that means that you could buy 1 to 5 shares a day every day of the week. Or with real estate investment trusts, if you buy in before the strike date, you could potentially buy in 2 days before the closing date and get all the shares dividends for the month. So, for example, Orchid's payday is the 27th. So if you would have bought in today, the whole month's dividends would have been paid out to you on the 27th in 2 days. And you could just leave your money there and let it ride. I'm just saying, like, it's the situation. We don't think about these things, but that's going to be for another show. Today we're going to be talking about the world of the DEI initiatives and the challenges that they faced, and we're going to be looking at it from a different perspective, where we will be able to see if this industry actually improved the accessibility of resources for minorities. So we have to understand that the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, commonly referred to as DEI, have become a staple in many organizations, and these initiatives aimed to promote equality and fair treatment, addressing the systemic barriers and bias faced by marginalized groups. On paper, it sounds like a noble pursuit, but the question remains, are DEI initiatives truly bridging the gap for the minorities? Despite their good intentions, DEI initiatives have received criticism for being ineffective and even counterproductive. Some argue that these initiatives focus too much on superficial changes rather than addressing the root causes of inequality. The same way, and I'm going to point out some of these systematic changes that didn't make sense. Like when you guys heard early last year, late the year before, when Walt Disney started talking about not hiring white people. These systematic changes, such as taking Uncle Ben's off of the Uncle Ben's rice and just turning it into minute rice, taking Aunt Jemima off of the freaking syrup and now calling it General Mills. It makes no sense. You're not doing away with inequality and racism. You're just doing away with iconic stuff that has nothing to do with bridging the gap of inequality. For instance, when we started talking about hiring more diverse candidates, that might look good on the surface, but if they're not giving equal opportunities for growth and achievements, it's merely window dressing. Because if they're going to hire a large quantity of minorities, but they're not going to promote them, and if they're going to hire a large quantity of minorities just to say they're hiring a large quantity of minorities, but they're also going to turn back around and not hire qualified non-minorities, where they actually have a lower productivity rate due to the lower quality or lower skills, simply because they're trying to meet a status quo, you end up damaging the integrity of the product while not being fair across the board. Equality means equality for both sides, not just more benefits for the less fortunate side and less benefits for the more fortunate side, because that doesn't necessarily mean equality. You're looking for equal access to assets. You're not looking for equal treatment, because equal treatment means that you get got if it's your turn to get got. But equal access to assets and equal access to resources means that if I need a box so that you and I can be at the same level, then I'm going to stand at a box so that we're both 6 foot tall. So, we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to be treated equally, or do we want to have the equal accessibility to assets and resources? Now, that's a whole nother discussion, and by all means, you guys can chime in. But we have to remember that another criticism that is involving the DEI is the initiatives often lacking clear goals and matrices, making it a difficult situation to measure if they're being successful. I can tell you that I've never been on a job that I didn't get in on my own merit, but I did not have any accessibility to any of the DEI facilities that allowed me to meet that newer criteria. We also have to understand that this is government programs for government agencies. It doesn't necessarily widely spread across blue collar work. So most of us don't even know what a DEI program is, because it's not like it is provided in low-income neighborhoods. It is not provided to dropouts. It's not provided to the unemployment, like the career sources that a lot of us go to in Florida. They do not have a DEI program where it's just like, come here if you're hard up. And really, a DEI program for lower social status, lower financial status, would not be exclusive to minorities. It would be primarily focused on poor people. Everybody who doesn't have enough money to get on their feet and get the knowledge and skill set that they need to make it, because it's not supposed to be a discriminatory practice. It's supposed to be bringing equality. But if you're trying to raise the bar where the lower income individuals, the disparaged individuals, have better opportunities, then by raising the bar, you're raising the base level of skill set. And by raising the base level of skill set, what is the employer now doing? Raising the minimum qualifications for employment. So the counterproductiveness is still a situation that has never been addressed. Because think about it. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you needed a bachelor's degree to stand out of the crowd because everyone had a high school diploma. The people who had high school diplomas or GEDs would get blue collar jobs. And if you had a bachelor's degree, you got a mid-level career job, you got a upper management job, a second tier management job, or something to that effect. Now, since the majority of people, I think well over 60% of the American population has at least a bachelor's degree, to stand out of the crowd, you have to get a master's degree, which means and the government's not paying for second tier education. So after you get that bachelor's degree, you got to get private loans to get the master's degree. So you're in a position where you get a bachelor's degree to work at a fast food restaurant. You get a high school diploma to work at a fast food restaurant. You drop out of high school to get an early jump at working at that same fast food restaurant. The requirements have staggered into outrageously high requirements, and the pay is still base pay. It's not like, well, we're looking for bachelors and we're paying $10 over minimum wage, or we're looking for bachelors and we're paying $30 over minimum wage. Because you got to understand that there are some states that are still getting paid less than $10 an hour as minimum wage. Matter of fact, states like Louisiana is somewhere between $7 and $9 an hour is minimum wage. Areas in Florida is still paying people $10 and $13 for minimum wage. California can't afford to live at $25, $30 an hour. So you got to understand that the living wage is 2 times more than the minimum wage, and very few jobs pay the intro level worker living wage. You typically get living wage after several years of working on a job, quite a few promotions, or quite a few raises, where you have become a staple in the company. You've become more than an asset. then you start acquiring living wage. And if you don't increase your standard of living with the increase in pay, you might actually start being able to afford your ability to pay for your current standard of living. But truth be told, most of us, especially the lower class minded individuals, the more money that they get, the more money that they spend, which is one of the reasons why Donald Trump's business strategy is not to tax the money out of the poor people. It is to allow the poor people to throw more money away with frivolous spending by putting more money into the poor people's pockets. He doesn't have to keep issuing us stimulus checks if he stops taxing overtime. We're going to have more money in our pockets because most of us go into overtime because we can't afford to survive, which allows us to have more money to spend. It doesn't necessarily mean that our quality of life is going to improve. We just have more money to waste. Now, keep in mind, though, while you're going to be taxed less on your jobs, guess what's going to happen at tax time? Your overall hourly wage is going to become an annual salary, and that annual salary is going to be weighted against the quantity of taxes the job should have taken out of your check versus the quantity of taxes that the job actually took out of your check. Then when you go to file for taxes thinking, oh, I'm going to get a refund, no, you are not. If you're lucky, you will break even and you won't owe anything if you're lucky. If you use CPAs like Joe Martinez, or no, it was Joe Mastrano. That's who it was that was here on the show. And actually, I think I got a banner for him. He was doing taxes for everybody on the show not too long ago. And if you were to go and talk to Joe Mastrano, he would be able to give you a lot of tax advice. He'd be able to help you guys out with getting everything situated, because between now and April, y'all are going to be dealing with tax season. But you also have to understand that beyond that, you would have to do the best that you could with your TurboTax situation and try to run over there and hope that you can not have to pay taxes. But the fact is that taking away overtime taxes, because overtime taxes really, because it was a tier system, once your wage doubled, the taxation doubled. Now you're going to see a flat rate. So you're still going to see your hourly wage. So for 60 hours a week, you're going to be taxed for your regular 40, and then the other 60 is not going to be, the other 20 is not going to be taxed for now. But when your total salary is going to be calculated in 2025, the president would have to have a dynamic to be able to say that these overtime hours are non-taxed, or they would have to have a merit system where you would be able to determine that this is my 40-hour-a-week salary, and the rest of that income is non-taxable income. So I would only be able to claim my 40 hours a week on my salary, not the other 20 or 30 hours of overtime. So, which means that technically I get a lower income. And if he can pull that off for 2025's tax season, then yeah, it's great for everybody. It's going to put more money into people's pockets for the people to spend, which is going to put more money in the billionaires' pockets, because every time we buy something, we pay taxes on it, and that goes to the government. And every time we buy something, the profits go into the top 1%'s pocket. So instead of everybody complaining about higher taxes, you reduce taxes, increase spending, and just let everybody give their money away. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a method to everybody's madness these days. But without concrete outcomes, when it came down to the DEIs, it's hard to determine whether these initiatives are genuinely making a difference or just paying lip service to the area of diversity and inclusion. Furthermore, some of the critics argue that DEI initiatives have become more about compliance and avoiding legal repercussions rather than genuinely addressing the need of underrepresented groups. For example, when I told you guys before, hiring a certain number of minorities, specifically because they had to have a certain number of minorities on the payroll. They don't necessarily provide them with the necessary training that they need, and they don't actually provide them with the resources that they need to be overly successful in the company, but they have this slot that meets the criteria. Now, DEI initiatives aim to provide fair opportunities and support for marginalized communities, and companies with diverse perspectives often see improved innovation, better decision-making, and enhanced products or services. All workers can benefit from a more inclusive and equitable workplace. fostering a sense of belonging and increased job satisfaction. By promoting equal opportunities and representation, DEI efforts were supposed to contribute to broader social progress and reduced inequalities. However, it's important to note that the implementation and effectiveness of DEI programs have been subject to debate and criticism. Some have completely argued against this and claimed that certain groups, like white people and white women, have benefited more from DEI initiatives than others. I can't say that, but they're also saying things such as racial and ethical minority women also benefit from this. But you got to understand that DEI is going to benefit women regardless, because the first group of individuals that were given equality were the minority men. The second group of individuals that were given equality were women. The men were able to catch up to one another before the women were able to catch up to the men. So I can't really say that they're focused on women, but I actually can say that, I mean, if you're a woman and you go into a company that's primarily male driven, not because they choose to, but because very few women apply for that particular job, you will find that as a woman, if you don't do anything to screw up your position in that company, that you are more than likely going to get promoted in a shorter period of time than a man. You are going to get moved up the corporate ladder faster than a man will get moved up the corporate ladder. And a lot of people are going to feel like that's unfair. Equivalent to if an individual got hired because he was black, and then if that individual got promoted because they needed a black person as a manager and they had to fire a black manager, or a black manager had quit. So you're getting this role not because you deserve it, but because they're trying to fit the status quo. That does happen. And some people are treated poorly because they get promoted and they are a minority, because a lot of people in a company believe that that person hasn't been here long enough to earn that title. A lot of people believe that that person doesn't have the qualifications to have that title, and that develops a larger quantity of animosity and frustration in the company. Additionally, there has been some backlash against DEI efforts, with some concerned about potential reverse discrimination or questions that effectiveness of the programs are there. Additionally, some critics point out that DEI initiatives often fail to address intersectionality, ignoring the unique experiences of individuals who face multiple forms of discrimination, meaning those individuals that are not just treated poorly because of their heritage, they're also treated poorly because of their social class and social status, their financial status. For example, there's an initiative that's focused on racial equality that might neglect the specific challenges faced by women of color or the LGBTQ community and individuals of color that are in the LGBTQ community. So this oversight can lead to further marginalization and exclusion, ironically, within the very initiatives that are meant to promote inclusion. Now, Donald Trump is already sticking his finger on the throat of the LGBTQ community with a lot of the stuff that he's putting out. We're going to be talking about a lot of those initiatives on Monday, because he has gone through a list of things, and some of them has went directly up against those before and after surgery individuals. So I ain't making this up. I am just telling you, when I seen it and I heard it, I was like, oh, they voted for that. I was not on either side. I was here when everybody else was at the polls. So I am not responsible for the outcome of the election. I was doing the podcast, watching the polls. So I was not responsible for the outcome of the election. I was not a contributory party or participant of the mayhem that is about to befall this country, whether it turns out to be a beneficial thing or a catastrophic thing. I can only talk about it as I come across the information, and I'm going to bring that information to you guys. But in the mindset of these criticisms, it's essential to examine the actual impacts of the DEI initiatives. So case studies and research finds they're going to be a valuable insight into the success and failures of these initiatives, And this is going to be one of those interests, such as the study by McKinsey found that companies with diverse workforces were more likely to outperform those that were less diverse. And on the other hand, a report by the National Center of Biotechnology Information highlighted the limitations of DEI initiatives and addressing systemic racism. So, one significant case study showcased the efforts of the tech giant HP in 1919, where HP launched an initiative to increase, it's 2019, which was like 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. In 1919, HP launched, I said it again, in 2019. I'm talking about like 100 years ago. No, it was just like 6 years ago. 2019, HP launched an initiative to increase diversity in its hiring practices. The company set specific targets and implemented training programs to address unconscious bias. As a result, HP saw a significant increase in female and minority hires, demonstrating the potential for DEI initiatives to drive meaningful change. However, not all case studies are promising. A study by Harvard Business Review found that DEI initiatives can sometimes create a backlash, leading to resentment among employees who feel that these initiatives are unfair or unnecessary. Typically, the people who are not targeted by the DEI initiatives feel left out because they're not getting benefits too. Anybody who already has feels bad that somebody who has not is starting to get, because the person who has believes that they're entitled to, and the person who has not does not deserve it from the perspective of the person who has, because the person who has not did not earn that. That's the biggest problem of the whole situation. But you can be a millionaire and look down on non-millionaires and say that non-millionaires don't deserve $1 million because you're a millionaire. But if you think about the fact that usually the millionaire that has that mentality is the millionaire that inherited his or her millions from their ancestors. They didn't work for that. So those who got it without earning it look down on those who get it from government. I don't see why there is a care in the world. If you got a Bentley in your front yard and then the U.S. government starts offering Bentleys, don't complain. Don't complain. You already got a Bentley. Who cares if your neighbor gets a free Bentley? You work for yours. Keep your Bentley and smile about it. Now, when a situation goes where you walk in and your neighbor get a free Bentley, but you don't, then you can complain, because now they're not equally distributing resources. But if somebody who does not have transportation to get to work now gets transportation to go to work, you've already had transportation to go to work. Why is you bitching? Because they're getting a better chance of coming to work and relieving you from your duties so that you can go home and go vacation and spend time with your family and go golfing on a yacht. Just stop worrying about other people's business. But this highlights the importance of careful planning and execution when implementing these DEI initiatives. So another one of those DEI initiatives, it's not a DEI initiatives, but this is one of the things that one of the fans was talking to me about on Monday when he was talking about how the NAACP and the DEI programs are racist. And I was like, that's absurd. It might not be benefiting the targeted groups the way it's supposed to be benefiting the targeted groups, but it's not racist. But he wanted me to prove to him that I was wrong. He interrupted the entire discussion of the first 9 executive orders that Trump had put out so that he could talk about how the country was racist. And then another fellow jumped in right behind him that was an anti-nationalist, talking about how much the country was horrible because he's an anti-nationalist. And I'm trying to figure out, if you are against the nation, why do you live in this nation? Why don't you just go to another nation where you feel satisfied to call yourself a nationalist? If you don't like it here, didn't Trump say get out? But since I gave him my word, I said, look, I'm not just going to tell you that there was nothing racist about the NAACP. I'm going to prove it to you. So I went, got the details and the facts and the statistics, and I brought it to you. So the NAACP emphasizes that membership is not restricted by race. So individuals from various backgrounds including white allies, are encouraged to join and support the organization's mission to combat systemic racism, which is just what the DEI was designed to do as well, and promote equity and justice for all communities. The NAACP was founded in 1909 by a diverse group of activists, including both black and white individuals. So when they said, nope, it was founded by black people, it's run by black people. No, it's not, bro. No, it's not. It has never been exclusively run by black people. There was white people all over the place. Because how can you tell me in 1909, when majority of black people were still considered property before the First World War, that black people could create an organization to provide equality in a white nation? That's not, there is no way that tools can rise up and demand to be treated fairly in a culture at that time that would beat you into submission if you did not follow instructions. That's like telling me that your pets are going to demand a union change in your household. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Either way, while it primarily focuses on issues affecting African Americans, its founding members recognize that fighting racism is a collective struggle that involves people of all races. White members often play a crucial role as allies in the NAACP efforts, and they can help amplify the voices of marginalized communities and contribute to broader social justice initiatives. The organization encouraged such participation to foster a more inclusive approach to civil rights advocacy. And while the NAACP has a majority of black members, particularly in local branches, many chapters also include white members who are also actively engaged in promoting social change and supporting diversity incentives. As of now, as of January of 2025, the NAACP executive team is composed of approximately 74% white members. So I'm going to say that one more time, because the individual that told me that there are no white leaders in the NAACP, I'm like, what? I was watching the news when they were, I was still legit when they were talking about this, but that's okay. We didn't both grow up in the same America. I grew up in Southern America. Some people grew up in Northern America. Apparently, American history is different when you cross over the Mason-Dixon line. Either way, as of now, the NAACP has an executive team that is all leadership. That is executive members, executive directors, operations directors, directors of promotions and advertisements, the public relations directors. As of now, the executive team comprised of approximately 74% white members. So this is the part of the show where I tell that gentleman, I told you so. Moving on. The involvement of white individuals in the NAACP reflects the understanding that systemic racism affects everyone and collective action is necessary for meaningful change. This perspective reinforces the idea that addressing racial issues is not solely a black problem, but an American problem that requires diverse participation. Derek Johnson, one of the white people that are on the executive board, currently serves as the president and CEO of the NAACP. Google him. That is Derek Johnson. Also, Leon W. Russell is the chairman of the National Board of Directors, also a white man. So the board includes a diverse group of individuals reflecting a range of experiences and perspectives. There have been ongoing discussions with the organization about increasing diversity in leadership roles to better reflect the communities it serves, including calls for more representation from women and people of color. The first white person to join the NAACP was part of its founding group established in 1909. So it's not like it was a new thing that non-minority people were leading the NAACP into a position of authority for the marginalized individuals. I have to get this through, because I kept telling him on Monday, I was like, bro, that is what you're saying is not the case. I love trolls because trolls give me new research material to look for. But while he was trolling us, he was completely misinformed. So I'm dedicating today's show to him. Now, the organization was created by an interracial coalition, which included prominent white figures such as Mary White Ovington and Oswald Garrison Villard. These are both descendants of abolitionists. So they, along with other activists like W.E.B. Du Bois, y'all know him, he's on one of the coins, isn't he? And Ida B. Wells Barrett, these are not minority names, were instrumental for the formation of the NAACP, which aimed to combat racial injustice and promote civil rights for African Americans. Mary White Ovington, in particular, played a significant role in the early years of the NAACP, serving as an officer for nearly 40 years and helping to guide the organization through its formation stage. The NAACP was founded partly in response to violence against Black Americans, including lynching, and sought to advocate for their rights through legal and social means. As of now, the NAACP has over 2,000 local chapters across the United States, where, if I remind you, 74% of leadership is not minority, with 2,000 branches across the United States. These chapters serve as the grassroots foundations of the organization, engaging in various civil rights activities and community advocacy efforts. So each chapter operates within its respective state, conference, contributing to the NAACP's overall mission to promote social justice and combat racial discrimination. So the NAACP has always had white members involved from its inception, reflecting its community to multiracial approach to civil activism. And that's not the only historical misconception, because Daryl Davis is a notable figure known for his unique approach to confronting racism and white supremacy, because he, as an African American musician, had spent over 30 years in the KKK. Along with him, in 1978, Stallworth responded to a classified ad in the local newspaper that sought members for a new KKK chapter in Colorado Springs, and Stallworth successfully applied for the KKK membership and received a certificate signed by David Duke, who was the Grand Wizard at the time. So there's at least 2 Black people that were members of the KKK going as far back as 1978. So Stallworth framed his certificate and displayed it in his office. Hilarious. So what people think about history is not what it really is. And history is wiped the same way the U.S. government has been wiping the history over the past 2 years by destroying Confederate monuments and anything that they claim is perceived as racist. Now, Black people have not been protesting and spray painting and tearing these things down, but as soon as a few dozen non-minority people feel like that's too racist for the Black people, they start taking stuff down and start changing heritage. Just leave it alone. America was founded on a lot of negativity. You have to realize that the first colony, not the first 13, the first colony was a bunch of people that was kicked out of another country by either crime and or debt. They fled from punishment. The first 13 colonies was a country full of people kicked out of Britain. That's it. So this country was founded on misery and torture and oppression. Face it. Trying to wipe that off the face of the earth and still trying to have a Black History season makes absolutely no sense, because you can't tell me that we're not going to remember what happened for over 400 years in this state, in this country, and then turn back around and pretend like it never happened. because not only do we have Black History season from January all the way until like March or April, we also have Juneteenth, which reminds us a second time out of the year it happened. So, one of the compelling stories that illustrated the impact of DEI initiatives is the experience of a young Black woman named Rachel. And Rachel worked for a company that had recently implemented a diversity and inclusion program. As part of this initiative, the company provided mentorship opportunities and training programs specifically designed for underrepresented groups. Rachel, who had previously felt invisible in her workplace, was finally able to connect with colleagues who shared her experiences and challenges. With the support of her mentors, Rachel was able to advance in her career, become a leader in her department. And Rachel's story is a testament to the potential of positive initiatives enforced by the DEI that creates meaningful change. However, it is essential to recognize that not all initiatives are equally effective. So DEI initiatives must be tailored to the specific needs of the organization and the community they serve. So while DEI initiatives have the potential to promote equality and fair treatment, their effectiveness is far from guaranteed. It's crucial to approach these initiatives with a critical eye and recognize both their successes and limitations. By doing so, we can work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable society. Now, President Donald Trump has taken the first step towards that equity and issued an executive order mandating that all federal employees working in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles be placed on paid administrative leave effective immediately. Key points of this action included the order that was signed on Tuesday, January 21st, which is about 4 days ago, 2025, with a deadline of 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, January 22nd, for agencies to notify affected employees. The order applies to all federal agencies impacting employees in DEI offices, including those focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility, which accessibility implies disabled people that are underrepresented. Federal agencies have been directed to place DEI staff on paid administrative leave, remove all public-facing DEI websites and social media profiles, cancel all DEI-related training and contracts, and provide a written strategy for terminating these employees by January 31st, 2025, which is 5 days from today, 4 days after midnight. So if you're on the East Coast, it's 4 days from today. If you're on the West Coast, it's 5 days from today. Either way, I think it's Wednesday or Thursday of next week, these people will no longer have a job. The Trump administration described DEI programs as immense public waste and alleged they created shameful discrimination with government hiring practices. Wow. Now, while the exact number is unclear, it's estimated that several hundred to a few thousand workers could have been affected by this order. And this action is part of Trump's broader initiative to eliminate DEI practices in the federal government, which he claims undermine the merit-based civil service. During President Trump's inauguration on January 20th, 2025, Elon Musk made a controversial gesture that sparked widespread debate and criticism. So after Donald Trump finished signing all of these freaking executive orders, at a post-inauguration event, Musk raised his hand, his right hand, diagonal and upward. I'm not going to do it, with his palm facing outward towards the crowd, repeating this motion twice. Many observers interpreted it as resembling a Nazi or fascist salute. Some supporters claim it was an expression of enthusiasm or a Roman salute. Neo-Nazi groups celebrated the gesture. Congressman Dan Goldman, co-chairman of the House of Bipartisan Task Force for combating anti-Semitism, stated it can't only be interpreted as a saying hell salute. Why not? That's I wasn't expecting that. So the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, initially described it as an awkward moment of enthusiasm, not a Nazi salute. Musk has previously been accused of promoting anti-Semitic and racist views. The gesture occurred amid raising concerns of far-right ideologies, and Musk did not apologize, but instead made jokes about the incident on social media, which apparently he can do since he owns an entire social media platform. The controversy has led to debates in Congress and Europe about the implications of such gestures. The incident has reignited discussions about the normalization of extremist symbolism and the responsibilities of public figures in positions of influence. Now, that is going to be a very, very long discussion that we're going to have on another day, but I can definitely tell you that there were so many extremists that came out of the closet when Trump was in office, the last 4 years that he was in office, to the magnitude that they were trying to break into churches and murder minorities in broad daylight. Went to a Walmart and murdered a minority couple middle of the day. That I don't know why, probably because he couldn't afford it. The majority of minorities weren't wearing body armor when they left their houses and didn't strap up severely because it wasn't safe. This is the beginning of the first 4 years of a group of extremists coming out of the closet where they no longer wear the Nazi white sheets anymore. I've seen them as of recent times in all black with a red stripe around their outfit, whatever, and they have the black flag with the red Nazi symbol on there. And that Nazi symbol used to not mean that, but that's what they're using for now. But they've revolutionized their ability to be biased. Now, when a situation goes south and they are in need of assistance, nobody cares what your race is when "help me" is coming out of your mouth. So I guess you don't got nothing better to do but to pick on somebody that doesn't look like you. But I can guarantee you that everybody is going to be on the same side of the fence when the machines take over the workforce. So while non-minority people are going up against minority people are going up against other minority people, and the country is still divided. We do have Donald Trump putting in efforts to block the border from all of the invasions that are coming in from out of the country, and we're going to be talking about that next week as well. Depending on how many executive orders we get through, we're going to be talking about that next week as well. But the fact is that while the country is changing, the country is changing. He has made some bold statements about his EBW and HB1 situations, which I think that is extremely. I've got a few students that are coming from Taiwan that it's going to impact them, but it's extremely different from what we're used to. And I just strongly believe that we should see where this is going to go. Now we have a new one coming in that is asking, why do you be queefing out your mofo so much? Well, because the same way you are able to jump onto the podcast and embarrass yourself by completely utilizing those words out of context of a complete sentence. I have the ability to utilize my First Amendment right to talk about everything that I see, hear, understand. And you actually have the opportunity to not even participate in the podcast at all. But apparently, my information is so compelling that you are able to dive into tonight's show and try to besmirch it with your lack of enthusiasm towards the comments that I make. However, you have literally no information that would besmirch my queefiness to be in any way, shape, or form inappropriate or unethical, or for that matter, non-factual. So while the truth sucks just because it's coming from a brother, you're just going to have to accept the fact, bro, that feel free to continue trolling, but I'm talking about what's going on around me. I see it, I hear it, I talk about it. If it affects me, if it affects the people that watches my podcast, I talk about it. If there's ways that we can get around it, I talk about it. There's a right and a wrong way to do everything in this world. Ignoring it is not one of the ways. There is an appropriate way and an inappropriate way. For example, the appropriate way for you to not approve of my queefiness is to just swipe away. The inappropriate way for you to address my queefiness is to come onto the podcast and make yourself look like a complete idiot because you got the right one today. And if you have any type of conflictual comment that you'd like to share with me, by all means, you can click the link in the comment section. I'll put it back in there a second time just to make sure that you're able to see it, because I know that when the comment section scroll through that you end up missing out on it with all the people that do comment in the podcast. So here you go again. I'll give it to you again, and you can by all means click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera, jump up onto the podcast, and we can sit here today, and then we can talk about all of the queefiness between you and I can positively educate you on everything that I've talked about, because as I've said before, this is a 7-day-a-week live podcast, and this live podcast does research 7 days a week. I do not start this show without doing research on the topic that I'm talking about, so I always come informed. So if you would like to challenge me on any of the knowledge that spews out of my mouth that is backed by facts, by all means, I dare you. His response: okay, then, we cool. You came up with the new word queefiness is now in the dictionary. That's fine. Queefiness can trend. It can be an adjective. The act of being queefed. I don't mind. But by all means, this podcast is about providing information which is public knowledge to those individuals who don't have time to seek out public knowledge, for those individuals who forgot that public knowledge exists that can aid them and improve them in their decision-making process. This podcast is about helping other people find another way to resolve their issues in their own personal lives. This podcast is not about woe is me. I will never come here and complain about how I think anything is negative about my life, because in fact, if I don't like the way things are going, I make changes. I make changes with my decision-making process. I make changes with the people that I affiliate with. I make changes with the people that I socialize with, which are not the same thing, because you can hang out with folks that will counterproduct your agenda, and you can do business with people that counterproduct your agenda. You can actually promote people that do not promote your agenda. So there's a lot of different ways that you can have a very bad network that is counterproductive to your overall objectives. I avoid any type of relationship, be it friend, family, or employment, that counter my ability to reach my objectives. This means that even romantic relationships, if they are not healthy, they are not manifesting a positive outcome for my objectives, I will dispose of them without remorse, because it is better to be in healthy mindset, emotionally intelligent, and emotionally stable by yourself than it is to be participating in a toxic relationship with individuals that do not have your best intentions at heart. Likewise, since you would like to come in and dive into the podcast, this is a highly interactive podcast, highly engaging in podcast. I, by all means, encourage everybody to hit that like and subscribe button. By all means, you guys can come in and you can join the show whenever you want to, because this is an open-minded, open mic, open forum, and we are going to pass knowledge around like there's no tomorrow. So if any event that there's ever any information that you would like to provide to the podcast, by all means, dive in. I completely accept any opposition that would be provided to this podcast. There is never a scenario where I am not going to take that challenge. Okay, so since he doesn't have a third response, I just want to say, hey, this is what happens. When I go live for the betterment of everybody else. You don't feel like you're benefiting from it, you don't have to stay. But those of you who hang out for the hour, 2 hours, 5 hours sometimes that this podcast is live, you will learn something. This and that talks about this, that, and everything in between. So we don't have to stay on the same topic. We can straw man to another topic. But never will I ever sit here and bring you no information. Just like on Monday, when an individual tried to challenge me to a situation where I needed to get more information to prove my position, before I talk out my behind, I rescheduled an opportunity to go back and support my position with factual evidence. The same way you would in a civil court, where you would request a recess from the judge so that you could regather your evidence to prove your case. I will reschedule the show and do another show later in the week to prove my case. And I will always bring you factual evidence. That's one of the things that you guys have to understand. I always make it a point on this podcast to go out and find the knowledge and then bring it to you. So if you're looking for some insight on something, you can always just throw it into the comment section. As long as it is an appropriate topic, I will do some research on it, do a show about it. If you guys provide me with a large plethora of topics and there's a theme to some of them, I might air a few of them on the same day just to make sure that all of the information that you guys ask me for goes directly into the show that I'm providing for you guys coming soon. I try my best not to be informed outside of this podcast. So inside of this podcast, I'm going to be informed. I am not going to be in a situation where I'm not going to know what's going on and then pretend like I do. There are people in this world that do that. There's a lot of people in the business world that has this mentality of fake it till you make it. I was raised to be yourself. You'll be fine. But you're going to be your best self 100% of the time. You will do the best that you can do for as long as you can do it. I also come off of the fundamental expectations that you do what you know is right. You stand up for what you believe in. You defend that by any means necessary. I added that in from your Malcolm X and Huey Newton scenarios. Stand up for what you believe in and defend that by any means necessary, but you always accept the consequences of your actions before you perform the action. So when you decide to storm on Washington, not knowing if you're going to get an executive order to pardon you from those efforts, know that you might be sitting in a federal prison until he gets reelected. These are the decisions that you make. You cannot blindly take action and then say, I'm sorry, and get a redo. This is not a video game. You can't hit the reset button and start the game over from the beginning and make different choices. You can't throw up a false apology and then have consequences not come because you did not like the outcome of your choices. I'm not going to tell you that you made the wrong choice. You just made a choice and you did not like the outcome of your choices. You can't start your life over. You can't end it now and start it over and make better choices in the next life. It doesn't work that way. If you make a bad choice in this life, you've got to deal with it in this life until you have found a way to change your current situation. So as long as you are making decisions for yourself, or as long as you are allowing someone else as a power of attorney or somebody else who has more authority over your life than you do to make decisions, you have to accept the cards that have been dealt to you and play your hand to the best of your ability. You are only going to be successful based on your efforts. And, you know, for the lack of a better position to put this pin in the topic is that, look, that's exactly what kind of country that Trump is making for you. You will get less handouts from the U.S. government over the next 4 years, and you will have more of a requirement to make your own way. This is no longer, if it was ever a country that gave you a freebie for whatever reason, going forward, all of those freebies will stop. You will not get government handouts. You will not get a shake of the leg here and there. It's not going to happen. If you are not making it, you're not making it. If you're not getting it, you're not getting it. That's going to be the way it's going to be for probably the next 25 years or so. There are very few executive orders that can be immediately overturned by another executive order. You can water down an executive order by changing policies around an executive order, but you can't undermine an executive order with another executive order. So the way the country is about to be built, we have to navigate ourselves around that. So when I talk to you guys on this show about how to make yourselves better people, how to make better decisions, how to improve your life, how to improve the people that you socialize with, how to improve the decision-making process of the people around you, accountability for yourself, accountability for the people around you that will negatively impact you with their actions and efforts. That is what you have control over. You will not do business with people that will compromise your agenda. You will not socialize and affiliate with individuals that will compromise your agenda. And you will not date individuals that will compromise your agenda. Because whatever it is that you want to do with your life, wherever it is you want to go with your life, whatever you want to end up being in your life, it is only going to be limited by the decisions that you make and the decisions that you allow to be made in your presence, where the outcome of those decisions directly impact you, whether they're positive outcomes or negative outcomes. So overall, we've got a lot of things that we've got to learn how to do in this country. We've got a lot of things that we've got to learn how to do with each other. And just because it's coming out of the mouth of a minority male doesn't change the fact that it's fact. I can tell it to you. A white woman can tell it to you. A black woman can tell it to you. A white man can tell it to you. But it's still going to be the same facts. If it's not right, if the shit doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense no matter who tells you the story. You can't attack the messenger and bash the messenger just because it hurts your feelings. You feel a little bit salty about it and you want to come onto the podcast and you want to start taking shots at folks. You have to recognize and realize the fact that if it hurts your feelings to the point that you have to jump into the comment section and say something negative about a message that says, hey, things are changing, whether you like it or not, you're either going to adapt to it and improve yourself, or you're going to fall victim to it. If that hurts your feelings, by all means, jump in and say something negative. I don't mind. As long as it's reasonably appropriate, you can say whatever you want to say on here negative. You start getting too out of line, I got to do something about that. But as long as you're reasonably appropriate with your negative comments, keep the negative comments coming. I don't mind that. It's not going to change my position. It's not going to change the fact that the stuff that I tell you guys on the show, I've already adapted to. I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying it. I'm not saying it for the sake of views. I'm not saying it for the sake of, a large following. I'm not feeding the masses so that the masses can come to me. This is a small podcast, a little under 21,000 followers. We've got 50 to 100,000 views a month. This is a small podcast. This isn't a multi-million view podcast where we've got several 100 million people. We have a 50 million member subscribership. This is a small podcast. I tell you guys what you need to know, and I'm going to be honest with you. As a man that is talking sense, that is talking business and finance and social equalities and social norms and mutual respect for one another, it's going to be a very small podcast for a very long time, because anybody who does not fit the benefit of treating each other with mutual respect, not going to like what I have to say. If I start saying things that certain women are offended by, they can agree with it, but they're not going to agree with me saying it. There's situations where, just like I'm talking about today, where equality isn't all that equal. Notice that Trump is not talking about equality. He's talking about equity. because there's a difference between equality and equity. Equality means that everybody gets treated the same no matter how much resources they have. Equal equity means that everybody has the same access to the same quantity of resources, regardless of how much they put effort into getting that. When you start talking about equity over equality, you start talking about, I got the same shake at being the next president as the next man. Equality dictates that I'm supposed to be treated like dirt the same way the other person gets treated like dirt. So you got to think about this. Nobody really puts an actual pin on the true definition of what equality really means. Because even when we're talking about gender equality, we're not talking about equity. When we talk about gender equality, we talk about the women's right to be treated the same way a man gets treated, but the financial expectations of the man is still going to be higher than the financial expectations of a woman. That doesn't make me an incel for calling it out, but that's the truth. Equality means that if I'm treated like shit in this scenario, you're supposed to be treated like shit in this scenario. If I'm supposed to pay the bill because I'm in charge, you're supposed to pay the bill because you're in charge. But we point out the fact that there's no equality and there's no equal equity involved, because a man does not have the authority in a relationship where he proves his loyalty to his woman by submitting to his woman, and then she becomes a tyrant over him. And it doesn't always happen, but when it does happen, that's not equality. If a woman becomes a leader, she is supposed to treat her husband like a king. She's not supposed to treat her husband like a servant. And any woman that recognizes that she can raise her voice at her man, yell at him, throw stuff at him, hit him, and demand submission from him has to understand that if you put Ike Turner in front of those four things, you say that is abusive to women. Now, why is it that women treat men the same way, that they don't want to be treated by men? That's not equality. If a woman is in authority, she pays the bills, she pays the cost to be the boss, but she's going to shame the man every time she spends $1 on him. Is that equality? It's not. But as soon as I start talking about that stuff, women are like, nope, I'm not following him. But tell me that I'm wrong, though. Tell me that I'm wrong. If I was to do a whole show about how men ain't shit and women should rule the world, I would have twice as many followers. I would have 10,000 women on this podcast every day, just blindly chanting my name because I am promoting the biased position. But as soon as I start saying, hey, you should treat people the way you want to be treated. So since you don't want to be treated that way, you shouldn't treat men that way. As soon as I say don't treat men that way, everybody's in an uproar. Oh, you shouldn't say that. As soon as I say, well, minority people should not behave the way they don't want to be treated, because you have to understand the stereotypes come from somewhere. People don't call you violent when you're not violent if there isn't a history of violence from that group of people, and you're categorized as a group based on stereotypes. So you only fit a stereotype if you perform the actions of a stereotype. If you carry yourself in the manner of that stereotype, you're not going to fall victim to a stereotype. Like, for example, when you start throwing out all of the stereotypes of black people, none of those stereotypes has a black man in a suit. The black man in a suit is an outlier. When you start looking at a black man in a suit and you start talking about aggressive behavior, gang violence, you start talking about depreciated vocabulary and disrespectful behavior, and then you look at a black man in a suit that's highly educated, that's an outlier. It doesn't match the stereotypes. How do you treat somebody who doesn't fit into the stereotype? A person that fits into the stereotype, your pants hanging off your behind, do-rags all over the place, broken English, no respect for yourself, no respect for the people around you. You fit a certain stereotype. You're supposed to treat those type of people a certain way. That's how stereotypes work. But if you don't succumb to a stereotype, guess what? You're not treated that way. When you start putting 30-inch rims on your Honda Civic with $40,000 stereo systems and midnight black tint on your car, resembling a drug dealer, guess what they're going to treat you like? Drug dealers. It's going to be like Training Day when the Russians rolled up on that car and shot it up. I'm going to be honest with you. You're asking for trouble when you resemble trouble. You are not supposed to emulate negativity if you do not want negativity. This is another reason why good boyfriends and husbands tell their girlfriends and wives how to dress. Because if you're not an adult freelance worker, don't dress like one. If you don't belong to the streets, don't dress like you belong to the streets. If you don't know what having respect for yourself is, that's what your husband and your boyfriend is supposed to do. Tell you this is how you dress to show that you respect yourself and respect the relationship that you're in. Women that want to date up, and they want to date men that are seemingly better than them, because the hypergamy theory indicates that no matter how successful a woman is, a woman wants a man that's more successful than her. So she wants a man that's smarter than her, physically fitter than her, taller than her, more educated than her, more capable than her, which also means that she's supposed to learn from him, which also means that under the ideology that a woman will choose a man that is 100% or a majority of better than her by her standards, her expectations, then wouldn't it make sense that you follow his instructions? Because in order for anybody, regardless of your gender, to become a better person, you have to find people that are better than you by your opinion, that have already made it to where you want to be. And then you learn from them. Mentorship requires you as the apprentice to learn from people better than you, right? Now, put that in a relationship dynamic. If she picked him and she believes that he is better than her by her standards, then wouldn't it make sense that she does what he says so that she can become as good as she thinks he is? Tell me I'm wrong. Flip that so that those feminists don't want to feel like, oh, you're just saying that because you're misogynistic. If she's better than him, he picked a woman that's more successful than he is. He will listen to her so that he can learn how to be as successful as she is, because that's what he wanted in his life. When you are trying to grow, you find somebody that is equal to you or better than you so that you can grow and hopefully surpass them. And if you're motivating, then you are going to encourage them to surpass you. If y'all are both down here or somewhere in this area and you surpass her and she surpasses you and you surpass hers, guess what y'all are doing? That's called growing and improving. But it also requires you to listen to your partner. It also requires you to appropriately critique your partner, not criticize and belittle them and devalue them, to appropriately critique your partner. Help them understand the things that they are not doing to help them reach their goals, not just boss them around and tell them what you want them to do to make you smile. Help them become a better them, because then they will put in more effort to help you become a better you. If you're working towards my success is easier. If I'm working towards your success is easier. If we are succeeding more effectively with each other, what motivation do we have to part ways? Make it make sense. Now, if we understand that we have partners that only benefit from our efforts, regardless of whether you're a male or a female, we have partners that benefit off of our efforts, because they've got successful women there. Her boyfriend's driving her car. He on probation, no driver's license. He driving around with his girlfriend in the car. We got some people out there like that. So it's not just one side. It's both sides of the fence. We have people that benefit off of our efforts. But we are supposed to be looking for people who will aid us in our success. So for those women that want a man that's going to support her career, those women need to support his success so that he can afford to support her career. In order for me to count on the bank to loan me money, I got to invest in that bank. In order for me to qualify to receive, I have to invest. In 2021, in order for you to get a refund from the stimulus checks, you had to file taxes. In order for you to get something out of this country, you got to put something in. In order for you to get something, you got to put something in. And that's in your relationship. That's in your friendships. That's in your employment. In order for you to get something out of your job, you got to put something in. So for those people who tell me on this podcast that, you know, they like to come in like Sherry did and come in and be negative about things, I don't mind. But in order for you to come and get something positive out of the podcast, you got to first give your time in order to get something positive out of the podcast. Now, if you put positivity into the podcast, you get more positivity out of the podcast. But if you come to the podcast full of negativity, you will at least get a higher level of insight, because I'm not going to waste my time with being negative with negative individuals. But I am going to make sure that you understand clearly the same way this individual decided to come out with the queefness. We're going to learn different. We're going to do better. And hopefully, by making better choices in life, that we should see a positive improvement in 2025. I know I will. I don't know about you guys, but I know I will. I'm going to see myself in different situations, in different lights, in different environments, where we're going to be doing this podcast in different countries coming soon. We're going to be doing this podcast in different states coming soon. And as I do this podcast in different areas of the world, you're going to be still in the same spot watching this podcast, and some of you would have learned from me, and some of you will still be in the same situation you're in right now. As Jesus gave those wise men 3 coins, each one of them had the opportunity to do something with that coin. One did something and was successful. One did something and failed. One buried the coin in the dirt. The one who buried the coin in the dirt came back and said, look, I still got the same coin that you gave me. I will be as disappointed that you did nothing with the advice that I gave you, as Jesus was as the wise man who wasn't as wise as the other 2 wise men and actually buried the coin in the dirt and came back with the same coin. I would prefer for you to try and fail or try and succeed. I would prefer for you to try and succeed. But if you at least tried and failed to learn something from your failure so that you can try again and succeed, I would prefer for you to take the knowledge that I gave you and you utilize it for something, as opposed to just hanging out with me on a podcast every night. I want you to hang out on a podcast every night, but I want you to learn something from hanging out on a podcast every night, which makes this podcast more of a challenging podcast than most other podcasts, because other podcasts are red pill podcasts. They're political debate podcasts. They're all about just talking about one-sidedness of a topic, where everybody who agrees with that particular side is going to get in there and broman it. And then that's going to raise viewership, where everybody else who disagrees with it is going to naysay it. And then they're going to bigger in the comment section, which is going to raise viewership of the channel. And really, they're not even talking about improving anything. They're just complaining about the fact that shit ain't fair. I know it's not fair. This podcast doesn't have overly attractive women dressing provocatively to keep your attention. The only thing that keeps your attention is the knowledge and information that I provide to you from the time I start this podcast till the time that I end it. That's it. Beyond that, there is literally no other reason for you to come to the show. It's not my attractive outfits or anything to that effect. It's not that I made my glasses match my suit or anything like that. It is the knowledge and wisdom that I provide to you. That's why you keep coming back every day. That's why you guys hang out for the full show. That's why I'll see you guys tomorrow night. So, on my way out of the show today, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. For those of you that stayed still, I want to give you a special shout out one more time to Omni81, Liberty Twitcher, Red Void, Danny, Stefan, because I got you over here on YouTube as well. I told you I was going to throw you in there. I appreciate you guys. Reese Martinez, Max Opposer, Lucas Opposer, Joe. That's Mac's dad. I want to give a shout out to Joe. Yeah, I'm talking about families. Light Blue, Chad. I want to give a special shout out to all you guys for showing us love and support on the show. I want to give another special shout out to Russia, Vietnam, United Kingdom, India, Australia, Philippines, Brazil. Special shout out to Romania. Romania is still watching. Make sure, hey, Danny, make sure that you share us with all your friends and families, and walk around and put the podcast on, share the link, just copy and paste it and send it to a bunch of people. That take that episode when I talked about how awesome Romania is and share it with all the people that you know and be like, bro, this may be talking about us on a regular basis in a positive light, and get some more of your people up here to learn some stuff about some stuff on this podcast. And if you don't, I'll still see you tomorrow. I don't really care. I just really appreciate you guys coming. I got to give you guys a special shout out because you guys are important. You guys make the show what it is. And as I walk out the door tonight, I want to say, ladies, as I always say every night, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Special shout out one more time to the fellas. About 85, 95% of the podcast. There's more women starting to watch the show right now because we're talking about Trump. Who knew? But the fellas made the show what it is because this is a majority male podcast. So I really appreciate you guys one more again as we walk out our show tonight. Make sure that you guys hang out because, as you know, we got the outro song, Higher Ground, is going to be playing on the show. So I want you guys to enjoy that on the way out. I'll still be putting you guys' comments on throughout the closing outro song. So if in the event that I see new comments in the comment section, I will throw them in. Even if they are coming from Twitch and Twitter, I'll still throw them in. So keep the conversation going as we exit the show. Thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never just live.